We recently left the city and moved back into the Rocky Mountains, not far from a little mining town you may have heard of called Cripple Creek. I've been to Cripple Creek several times, but never with such skeptical eyes as I have these days. Recently, Alan and I poked around the footprint of this now demolished building in Cripple Creek, the Grand Opera House on Myers Avenue. It was built sometime around 1896, just after the two fires that destroyed most of the town, which was immediately rebuilt, but this time all the structures were built with brick. Still, even though it was a brick building, the Grand Opera House burned down in 1906. All that work for a building that lasted 10 years. Today, the Opera House is in ruins. This is its foundation from the front, looking at the back wall. Cripple Creek runs through the grass just behind this foundation. And this is the basement wall on the building's east side. Opera houses are often destroyed by fire. Why is that? It's something I'm looking into right now with some friends, and we'll be publishing more on that soon. But beyond the fact that this was yet another opera house that burned down, what's left of the building holds another mystery. When we see windows and doors like this, opening into dirt, we might assume the building's been mud-flooded. In a mountain town like Cripple Creek, you can expect a hilly landscape, and lots of buildings will be built on land that's not level. But what you expect to see is something like this. Or this. But not this. Why would you bother framing doorways or windows straight into a wall of dirt? The implication is, of course, that they weren't originally designed that way. So what happened? There's another building in Cripple Creek that might at least hint at an answer. The National Hotel is gone today, but like just about every other brick building in Cripple Creek, it was built in 1896. It wasn't completed and furnished, though, until 1897. Like the Opera House, the National Hotel had a short life. It only stood for about 20 years before it was demolished, torn down to recycle its bricks. In the brief time it existed, we can see what looks like evidence of a mud flood. Here, its western windows have been slightly encroached by the slope of 4th Street, and this basement window facing south has been partially covered over by the Bennett Avenue sidewalk. The hotel was demolished in the 1920s, and an excavation in the 1940s dug out the hotel's foundation, revealing a door opening into the hill of dirt north of the hotel. But because there are no windows on this level, it's possible this door accessed a tunnel. As I've discussed previously, Freemasons have historically used underground spaces to change legal jurisdiction, and the Freemasons were definitely present in Cripple Creek at this time. But this photo, taken on Bennett Avenue east of the hotel, looking west, shows the result of a pretty large movement of dirt from the north, spilling down onto the sidewalk just east of the hotel and carrying a large field of debris onto Bennett Avenue. The dirt looks too dry to describe as a mud flood, but the term mud flood can be deceiving. A liquefaction event doesn't necessarily involve water. It can simply mean that dirt or sand is behaving like a fluid. And liquefaction can be caused by air bubbles, frequencies, or rapid loading. When the cause is removed, the dirt or sand immediately re-solidifies, as shown here by Mark Rober. The amount of dirt that was displaced next to the National Hotel was fairly large, reaching almost to the top of the painted line of the electrical poles. Each pole was painted to the same height, which we can see 1 block further west on Bennett Avenue, and that line was well above the height of a person. So this amount of dirt looks to be about 5 feet deep. What would cause that much dirt to slide here in town? It's possible that one of the stores of dynamite in town was detonated, either accidentally or on purpose. It certainly could have been done on purpose because uphill from the National, where Carr Avenue hits a sharp slope, there was a large dike or intrusion of porphyry that miners were dislodging, and not all their explosions were contained or predictable. This vein was located at the end of Carr Street, where the Congregational Church still stands today. In this photo of the vein, you can just see the roof of the church behind him. The rights to any ore within the Cripple Creek city limits belong to Daniel Hanley, who secured a franchise in 1902, which would lead us to conclude that this porphyry dike was his to exploit. Hanley erected the only headframe in town, seen here 1 block south of the National Hotel. It was also kitty corner to the Opera House, and directly in line with the landslide between Carr and Bennett Streets. It's likely that the mud-flooded windows of the National Hotel were a result of Hanley's Enterprise mine. And this may shed some light on one potential cause of mud-flooded buildings. The harvesting of minerals from the earth is enough of a motivator to cause such mud-flood damage, especially when the cabal in charge isn't particularly worried about any damage done to Middle America. And this would be true even when the extracted gold doesn't immediately look like gold. In fact, gold that doesn't look like gold is an easier secret for the cabal to keep. The gold in the Cripple Creek district was usually a dull silver color because a lot of it was mined out in the form of Sylvanite, a gold telluride. Sylvanite is a compound of gold, tellurium, and silver, and this is a picture of Sylvanite running through porphyry, a combination that was likely present in the porphyry dike on Carr Avenue. Sylvanite is a metallic compound from which its gold and silver must be extracted, which brings to mind this Latin phrase on the funerary monument to Francis Bacon, the last line of which is understood to mean, "Let the compounds be dissolved." This could be a veiled statement of Bacon's regarding alchemy and the production of gold. But where exactly is the alchemy taking place that produces the gold present in Sylvanite? Some researchers believe this alchemy took place in the root systems of ancient trees. And the relevance of trees brings us right back to Francis Bacon's Sylva Sylvarum, a book published just after his death. His Sylva Sylvarum is a compendium of scientific experiments and hypotheses. The title is usually translated to mean collection of collections, though Google translates it as a forest of forests, because the Latin word sylva means wooded forest. Bacon did include several discussions of trees in Sylva Sylvarum, but the book wasn't about trees per se. So where exactly did this title come from? Bacon writes on page 113 that Solomon wrote a natural history ranging from the cedars of Lebanon to moss. He also mentions coppice woods, a forest in which the trees have been pruned to encourage growth. But mentioning the cedars of Lebanon on the same page as coppice woods suggests something. Coppice trees are cut back, and the cedars of God have largely been cut down. Bacon also states that whenever plants are kept down, the earth putteth forth moss. Some prospectors talk of mining gold from moss because it traps gold particles. It led me to create this cover photo for a Facebook group that's delving into this mystery of Sylvanite, gold, and trees, a group I'm calling Sylvaritas. And if you'd like to join, there's a link in the description. Because the cedars of Lebanon were being gradually cut down during the 17th century, might Bacon have been quietly alluding to the abuse and removal of trees in Sylva Sylvarum? We're told that the 4 main locations of Silvernight on Earth are in Transylvania, Kalgoorlie in Australia, Cripple Creek, Colorado, and Kirkland Lake, Ontario. Plotting them on a map gives us this triangle, showing that Cripple Creek aligns with the vector between the Ontario and Australia locations. Each of these 4 Sylvanite locations also shows the presence of not only regular shaft mining, but also a large footprint of exposed rock and open pit mining operations. I saw something similar, these large footprints of exposed rock, in a few videos from Deeper Conversations with Chad. He discusses with Michelle Gibson and Adam Sakauka the possibility that these mines and quarries were the footprints of ancient mega trees, and I'll put links to these 2 videos in the description.
You can also see the quarries themselves. What I suggest from the Rowley quarry, you can almost see the shape the tree would make. I suggest that on top of Rowley Regis again was a huge tree which was mined, and the remains from above can almost be seen.
So Chad got back to me right away with a quarry that he found on Deer Park Road, my Deer Park Road. And Chad, you were finding quarries when you were doing the research, following the maps and finding the deer parks and everything, right?
Yeah, lots of them. Huge ones like this one.
What's really interesting about Silvanite is the fact that its name suggests it's a tree stone. Though historians and mineralogists don't make this connection, they insist the mineral was named for Transylvania, where it was initially found. In the case of Cripple Creek's Sylvanite, it's in some proximity to a petrified redwood forest in Florissant. But this is perhaps the most interesting link between trees and minerals. The gum trees of the Sylvanite region of Kalgoorlie, Australia, actually have specks of gold in their leaves. There's another small gold mine in the northwestern U.S., near a town sometimes referred to as Sylvanite, Montana, and this location is also on the triangle alignment. As of yet, there is no large footprint of exposed rock or open pit mining operations here. But the Black Ram project plans to clear-cut an 800-year-old forest of spruce and cedar trees, likely for the purpose of exposing more Sylvanite-containing rock. 2 vectors of the triangle cross the international dateline at interesting points. The lower one at the precise location where the dateline also crosses the equator, and the higher one precisely at the point where the dateline veers off to the west. If we hypothesize that these Sylvanite deposits were alchemically produced rather than just discovered, why would their alignment need to correlate with the international dateline? Could this have something to do with what Fomenko described as our corrupted timeline? We started this brief exploration in Cripple Creek, looking at a mudflood, and I'm wondering how many of these mudfloods were caused by controllers or their employees attempting to exploit and extract minerals from the earth. And could these open-pit mining operations be one reason we tend not to see so many mudfloods today? Several aspects of Silvernight and its connection to Francis Bacon remain to be explored, and I plan to do that in the coming weeks. So again, please join us in Silveritas, either on Facebook or Discord, if you're interested in joining that conversation. The Facebook link is in the description, and a link to the Discord server can be provided on request. I'm grateful for any feedback. Please leave your thoughts in the comments, and thank you for watching.